Okay, I think we're good. All right. So, welcome to this first event, live stream event at the lab. So I'd like to briefly introduce Mads, who is one of our friends and members of the lab, and who is an entrepreneur and a biohacker. He's going to explain us what that is, and probably have us play also a little bit of biohacking techniques. Very quickly, and then we can talk about it later. Tomorrow will be the last day of co-working activities at the lab. We will keep doing events like this. We will keep up practice of Surfasana, yoga classes, and in a few weeks we'll start introduction to meditation as it applies to work. But no more co-working. This will only be a place of practice and of sharing through events like this. And if you have questions, I'm happy to answer those after the event. Okay.
Thank you, Terry. Thank you everyone for showing up. Terry, thank you for organizing this and making sure that we contribute to the charity here. That today is actually meaning that some people are going to be fed after we've been here. I think that's pretty fantastic and something to be happy about. So, and hopefully you also leave. I want to congratulate you for actually taking time out of your busy calendar to work on yourself. Not that many people do that. So you're both contributing to other people and to yourself. I think that's pretty cool. So, but today is about Nordic biohacking, which I believe is part of the journey to a happy, healthy, meaningful life. So we're going to look into an introduction to Nordic biohacking and then some concrete biohacks. So you can leave after this event and actually start implementing something in your life. A little bit louder? Sure. So very shortly about myself. I'm a partner in something called Kang. In Kang, we believe that the best way to predict the future, that is to co-create it. So what we do is that we build new ventures within health and well-being and within sustainable energy. So we have our own team where we can test out new ideas that we come up with. We then find entrepreneurs that can actually take these companies further, and then we put down money into these companies. So that's what I spend majority of my time on. And the other part is that I run this podcast called Growth Island, where I interview experts from around the world. Everything from medical doctors to psychologists, scientists. I had a cold water expert on today. She did her PhD on how can you get the most out of cold water and what is brown fat. We'll talk a little bit about that later. To talking to the best kitesurfer in the world. I had Paula on, that some of you might know as well. And then I do workshops like this. And then I'm a big nerd. I'm a biohacker, as Terry said. I love to do different experiments, whether it's strapping stuff on my brain to measure it. The doctor says that my brain is like fairly okay, I'm not out of the normal. So that's always nice to get confirmed. Or whether it's testing today a new experiment about glucose monitoring to see glucose spikes in different food. We'll get more into that later as well. So before we get started, we want to have a purpose with this Nordic biohacking. So if I get you to close your eyes, I'm not going to do anything crazy with you. Deep breath in. Then think about something that made you really, really happy. A good memory of, it might be with a loved one, it might be kite surfing, something where you feel that feeling in your chest that's actually positive. And get into being in that state. And then thinking about someone that you really care about, someone that makes you happy, someone that you're grateful to have in your life. A good moment with them. How you look forward to seeing them again. And then another deep breath. And exhale, you can open your eyes. That's the shortened version of what Nordic biohacking is. It's about getting the energy to experience more of those beautiful moments. It's about having the energy and being with the people that you love and showing up to them, being the best version of yourself, probably the version that you imagine when you're closing your eyes. So you gotta have a reason for what you're doing, whether it's getting back to health or having that extraordinary energy, so you show when you show up, you're present. So Who's heard about biohacking before? Let me see a raise of hands. Some of you have heard about it, some of you are like, curious. What have you heard?
It's everything from neural meshes and to
Yeah,
it's a wide span.
it is. Anyone else? No?
Just I've heard of it, organizing this.
Yeah.
So what the research I got, it was using elements of nature, science, and technology to kind of optimize your body, your physical body, and doing lots of tests and analysis. And, yeah.
That's a nice balance way of looking at biohacking. Often when I come out and do presentations, people are like, it's chips in the hands, right? Or like implants in the brain, or like this crazy stuff. That's not what we're going to be talking about today. So if you're expecting the chips in the hands and so on, you'll be as disappointed as our body here. It's much more balanced. It's not a freak show. It is really about how you can take control of your own life and do something good. So when we talk about Nordic biohacking, we have a big focus on nature as well. So we say it's the science and art of optimizing your health, your performance, and your well-being through nature and technology. So nature first, and then we also focus on technology. That's really important from the Nordic biohacking perspective, and something we pride ourselves on quite a lot. So we focus on like the 80-20. Some of you might have heard about Pareto optimization before, that often we get 80% of the results with 20% of the effort. So we all have life filled with many things, and we don't just want to be doing biohacking all the time, right? We want to be together with people, we want to do results, we want to just be, right? So what are those small initiatives that makes a big difference for you, that can change your life? And I love the art of science. And this graph really shows like why science is so good. Can anyone tell me what that shows? It shows absolutely nothing. I just made it up and drew it up. But it symbolizes what's so fantastic about science. That we have these amazing studies that looks at this graph and say like this works for the majority of people. So we can look at where do we start? Because we have limited time, we can't do all the tests in the world, right? So what initiative should you start with? What should you start with? So we look at these studies, but we also see this little outlier here, right? And that's the art of science. Like we often just remove the outliers, and then like they don't really matter. But you might be an outlier. So this study that works for 90% or 80% of people might not be relevant at all for you. So we like to look at what works for the majority of people, test it out on yourself, and that's why we talk about n equals 1. So a sample size of 1, that you test it on yourself, and you actually see, is this working or not? Or are you one of those outliers? While also looking at the studies that say like, what are the outliers that are performing the best? What is it that they do different than the average person? So the last part of what we talk about is that it comes from ancestral wisdom and modern science. Ancestral wisdom. So we cannot say that we have the spectrum of blinded studies, the gold standard of science, saying like this really worked, controlled studies, to my grandmaster. We have different cultures here, so some of you are probably like this saying that your grandma always said you need to do something, right? If you got sick, this special thing worked. Well, this isn't proven with Western science yet, and it was only 20 years ago who said that the brain would be fixed after you became an adult. The brain, like scientific fact, the brain would not be able to change after you became an adult. That was accepted in the Western world. The thing is, we know that's not true. Today we know that the brain can change after you become an adult. And one of the things we used to laugh about in Western science was meditation. So meditation was this crazy stuff with people from the Eastern world that thought they could sit down and change their brain, which was like, how crazy could that be? But it's something that's been done for thousands of years. And today we know with Western science as well, change your brain with meditation. Still as 8 weeks can change physically the brain. That's why we're quite interested in like the ancestral wisdom, testing out again what are some of those wisdoms coming from back in the days that we can actually test and see does that work for us. And we don't necessarily need to have bloods showing it. It might just be that you feel better. That you stop up during your day and like, how am I feeling today? Is this actually making me feel better? Another reason why biohacking is pretty cool It's because life extension. I love life. Like we're here in Dominican Republic, right? We have wonderful weather, a good community. We can go surf, kite surf, meditation. So I want to live a long, healthy life. And biohacking is part of extending your life. We've been able to see within the last couple of years, we've been able to 2x the lifespan of mouse or mice, meaning that they would live what's equivalent to 200 years. Been able to 5x mosquitoes. That should be illegal. I'm sure I'm not the only one that's been eaten by these mosquitoes. So when I first heard it, I was like, can we stop these scientists? There must be an ethical code about what we're testing. But 5x the lifespan of mosquitoes with technology. That would mean you could be 500 years. And with worms, certain form of worms, the last couple of years, we've been able to 10x. Imagine you could live to 1,000 years. I'm not going to go into the ethical discussion about whether we should or not. Often people don't want to live when they get old and sick, but we love to live when we are young and healthy. So this is happening just the last couple of years. Biohacking is also looking at what are some of the technologies. Many of the technologies in our transfer into humans have not been invented yet. But there's a guy called Ray Kurzweil. How many have heard about him before? So he's a very known scientist. He's been extremely good at predicting the future since the 1980s. Around 80% of his bold predictions that most people say that's crazy, it's never going to happen. Those have been right. He talks about 3 waves. The first wave is the one we're living through right now, where we're learning about healthy eating, exercise, breathing, a lot of the stuff about the current biohacking. The next wave is 2029. It predicts by then we'll be able to add another year for every year that we live. That's not really that good news because those are sick years. And none of us are that interested in being sick for that long. But at that point, we should be able to add 1 more year. So everyone here that's able to live to 2029 should be able to continue to live for a long time. The other year is 2045. What he claims is even more bold is that's when we're going to be able to rejuvenate the body. So we're talking about stem cells, we're talking about CRISPR, we're talking about AI being at a new level. So that when you see me in 2045, I'll be looking even better and younger than today, if his predictions are going to hold. Whether you believe that we can be immortal and live forever, we see some phenomena like cancer, if you're actually immortal, doesn't really matter. This is not about us having to live forever and never die. But this is just to tell you that it's possible to live a long, healthy life. And that the 80 years that might be the average in Western countries, that can change if you take care of yourself and you follow along with these technologies, which most likely are going to be free when they get out there. So, what should you ask before starting a biohack? What I want to accomplish. Probably the most important question, because otherwise you end up doing a bunch of that doesn't really help you. So what is it that you want to accomplish? Does it solve or provide data on something that you're trying to address? So is it helping you address something that you want to improve? Is there science which backs the claim of it? That goes back to ancestral wisdom, modern science. Does it save me time? Is there anyone here that feels like they have too much time in the day? Yeah? What? Congrats. I think more of us are working to get there.
No, I thought it's still April. It's obviously Sorry.
Yeah. But most of us want more time, right? So we don't want to add 10 new things. That means we have less time. Does it provide joy or pleasure? That's something that's very close to my heart, and most people that know me know I want to do things that's fun. Is it making me bubbling, jumping around, or is it going to be I tried to do this movement training to get more mobile, and it was it's just so freaking boring, right? So it's about finding the stuff that actually gives you joy as well. And can you test it easily with low cost? Unless you have too much money, then we also look at cost. So when you're I got it, I'm going to live forever with my homies, we're going to be kite surfing here for the next 200 years, show me some freaking biohacks, man. So fundamentals first. You heard them before. Sleep, nutrition, movement, mindset, and relationships. I'm not going to cover all of the basics. I'm going to go into some more specific biohacks to give you something fun to actually that you can do when you go home from here. Nutrition also includes breathing and sunlight. So a lot of the stuff comes from inspiration from the Biohacker's Handbook, a really good book with a lot of pages and more than 1,500 references. So highly recommend, if you get more interested in biohacking, start with this book by my good Finnish friends. They are amazing at writing and they love to read studies. So it's a really good starting point if you want to understand like what's happening in this weird space. So jumping into sleep. Why is sleep important? Well, the body repairs itself by sleep. It's quite simple. It's also where we have the cellular damage that gets cleaned up. Even the day where you feel like you're just chilling and nothing is happening, you still have so many inputs coming in. And if you don't get proper sleep, some of those memories disappear. Memories do disappear, but more of the memories and what we learned actually does disappear. So some of the malfunctions from the lack of sleep, lack of focus and cognitive performance. Most have probably experienced that. You're always in a good mood when you don't sleep right. You know, like when people ask you to push your buttons, it's so much easier when you don't sleep. Problems with heat or cold regulation. Decline in the immune system, which is quite important right now. Increasing cortisol and other stress hormones. This is not that nice. Yeah, I'll speak louder again, sorry. And this one is really cool for the ones that came and wanted to figure out how can I gain a lot of weight. So then just don't eat, because if you don't sleep that much, then you'll have cravings for really bad food and your glucose is not going to be as regulated. So it's a really good way if you want to eat a lot of crappy food, just cut down on your sleep. It's going to be much more natural so you don't have to work hard for it. And if you want to, of course, then lose weight, the opposite would be definitely to be preferred. So the things that I do of the concrete biohacks, I have a semi-regular sleep schedule. It's one of the things that we know that makes the biggest difference. So going into the 80-20, going to bed at the same time and waking up at the same time is really good for the body and means that we're going to get better sleep. I have 2 blackout curtains at home. My girlfriend thought that was a bit much when she first moved in. The reason of that is that totally black room matters. So it's not only the eyes that actually picks up on light, the skin picks up on light as well. So totally blackout room makes a difference for you getting deep sleep. That means like turning off the TVs or whatever you have so you don't have that little light coming in. A cold room means 18 to 22 degrees. It's going to give you better sleep as well. That can be a challenge here because then you need an aircon and then you have a bit of light. So like what do we choose? I choose the colder room than being like 26 degrees and then having it totally blacked out. An air purifier, the little one there called Mila. So Denmark, I thought we had really good air. Turned out we didn't. When I got that air purifier, it keeps asking me to turn or close the windows. Because apparently when the windows are open, then I get the filthy air from the streets. And that's not as good as when Mila actually picks it up. That's a quite high effect. I'm not sure how the air quality is here, but it's a simple hack that actually just put on and then you get cleaner. I try not to have evening exercise. So meaning 3 to 4 hours before. Sex does not count as exercise in this regard for women. At least that's the only data point that I have. I interviewed a researcher who's a professor also at Stanford, and she had done an experiments with the glucose monitor, and she could drink alcohol and eat a lot more carbs pretty late before she went to bed. It was a sample size of 1. And an orgasm for her meant that the levels would actually even out, which it wouldn't do normally. So that's the only exercise that you might consider doing late in the evening as well for good sleep. I try not to eat after 7 o'clock. Another thing, so your stomach and body is not using all the energy on digesting the food. It's something that also improves your sleep. There's that caveat that you might have too low blood sugar, so you need a spoon of honey or something else. So make sure if you wake up during the night and go pee, that could be a reason. Another reason, if you drink 3 glasses of water, like I often do before going to sleep, logic kind of says that that water has to go out at some point. Magnesium. I take some magnesium before I go to bed. I have it adjusted according to my kilos after I talked to one of the authors of the Biohacker's Handbook on my podcast, and he recommended me how much magnesium to take. Again, super simple.
Why is that? What does magnesium do?
So magnesium basically it stabilizes several things in the body. So that you rest.
How many milligrams do you take?
I don't remember exactly. I just know I take 2 pills to be honest. He kind of looked at me like, you're 70 kilos. You need 2 of the pills that you have, and then you're good to go. I can find the exact number afterwards and send it. Cashew powder, that's it's more when we talk about the spectrum. There's less studies in that, more studies coming out on cashew powder versus mushroom powder. It's supposed to give you better sleep. Doesn't hurt. Some people feel really strong effects. I don't get that strong effects when I drink it, but it feels quite nice. It tastes like dirt when you drink it first. And then after you drink it like 3-4 times, for some weird reason, it suddenly tastes good.
Then mixed with water?
Yeah,
or in a tea?
hot water. So it kind of feels like a tea. Iris Blue Blocking Light, which is the software on your computer that changes the color. So we know that blue light we have different light spectrums. And we don't want the blue light, which is at the early start of the day, we don't want that. That's one of the main reasons why many people have a hard time falling asleep. So doing something simple as just installing that software, which is not that expensive, is a super easy hack. Changing the lights in where you live, so you have more of like the red light in the evening, also makes you have an easier time falling asleep. And of course, if you don't use electronics in the evening, you say like 2 hours before, that would be even better. Many of us do like to use our computers and phones quite late, so it's not always that easy. And then natural light first thing in the morning. Getting natural light into your eyes early in the morning increases your melatonin production, and means that you're going to fall asleep easy. So actually getting up early in the morning, what I do back home, I always open my window, even though it's Denmark, it's cold, it's gray, it's cloudy. I look up like a crazy person, smell the apparently dirty air after my air purifier, and then I see that light, even though it's cloudy, that is helping you actually produce that melatonin. All right. Some other hacks. Some of you might have seen this crazy guy, Dave Asprey, blue blocking glasses. Many people swear to them. The study is showing that they really work. I've used them. I don't feel the difference. Again, I might be an outlier, or I might just not feel as much. It's definitely helping a lot of people, and it's changing their life, and they're suddenly getting these glasses because now they're getting proper sleep. So that would be one of the first places to actually start as well.
Oh, what are they?
Yeah, so basically they're like glasses, not normal sunglasses, but that blocks the spectrum of the light. So that when you're watching the screen, the light that gets into your retina is not the lighter color like the blue color. So it's a very simple, easy thing to do. Again, going back to that criteria, is the science, is it easy to do, right? Is it not too expensive? Chili pad, something that cools you down. It's also a marriage saver, because some of you have different temperatures when you're sleeping. At least many couples have had that problem. One person is too warm, the other one is too cold. Then you can actually have that you adjust the temperature inside. And then trackers like Fitbit, Oura Rings, and so on. How many people have heard about the Oura Ring? A few people. So the Oura Ring is this magical ring, the precious, right? Just like Lord of the Rings. And if you go to the biohacking circle, you'll often see people posting pictures and being very proud about it. It's wonderful at measuring temperature. They're doing a study with Stanford. They predicted something about people getting COVID or not. So it's wonderful for that. Also good for resting heart rate and so on. There's sleep stages, which they claim. Sorry to say, it's absolutely horseshit. The few studies that have been done are totally off. Still many people, and I want you to be looking when you're following people on social media, if they're still posting about how the sleep stages were so amazing on the Oura Ring, it's really off, and you should start questioning the information they're sharing. It's okay in the start when people didn't know, but it's a company that raised many millions of dollars. The first thing you would do is you would actually test whether it works or not. And the few tests that have been done and been shown is not accurate. You'll find some of the biohackers saying, well, the trend is accurate, meaning like it might just be 20% off all the time. That's not true either, at least not according to the studies where they took it into sleep lab. So please don't fall into that trap. There's actually a new disease now where people are so worried about their sleep Just like you have bulimia, people that are overtraining, now there's a disease where people are so worried about this. So we also have a responsibility when we're explaining about this technology, is it actually accurate? So if you get it, just look at the other data points, don't look at the sleep stages. And when you see someone on social media posting about sleep stages, be wary about the rest of the information they're posting because they didn't do the research on that part of it. So that's a really important thing because these technologies can be life-changing. You just need to use them right. Nutrition. Yeah.
So before we change the topic, about the sleep stages, is there, with the biohacking world, is there like a recommended sleep pattern, timing, duration?
So we talk about sleeping according to the sun. So that's another thing that works really well, is that of course if the sun goes down too early and it's dark for like 12 hours, we want to follow something called a circadian rhythm. Which is basically that we're trying to follow the sun going down and going up. So we say some of the best sleep is around 9, 10 o'clock when you go to bed, and you get up quite early. So when it comes to sleep stages, that's a whole science and sort of a long talk about like deep sleep, rest sleep, REM sleep, light sleep, and so on. There's also some discussion about how much we know about. There's something about you get the majority of your deep sleep at the start. So that's why you also want to optimize for getting like good sleep so you get into that deep stage and stay there long.
So then you would get up with sunrise, right? Because it's first light of day.
And then you get the good spectrum of light if you get up really early. But if you live in something like Denmark in the summer, the sun doesn't go down before 10 o'clock and it gets up at like 4 or 5ish, I think it is. So then you sleep very little hours. That's why it's really important to have some blackout curtains. Or if you're in Norway, which is even worse, and then in the winter time you can only be up for 4 hours if you follow the light. So,
but would that work if you're following the sun?
If you're sleeping for 20 hours, that would probably be a bit too much.
Not 20, but in the opposite, when it's like you need like 6 hours. Then
I haven't seen the studies on if it's better when the sun is up, but most people intuitively feel in the summer, at least I do, and I know my friends, in the summertime in Copenhagen, we don't have the same need for sleep.
that's true.
So there could be something there, but I haven't seen the studies to be able to say that apart from like what's been my own experience. In the winter, I feel much more tired and I feel like I need a lot more sleep. Nutrition, that feels like religion, right? At least when you meet a lot of people that are passionate about it. I'm going to try not to go into the religion of nutrition, but just like the brief part is like, it's the building blocks for your body and your health. We become what we eat. The body makes it into our cells and so on. So we also know it regulates our mood. How many know that feeling of like a juicy burger, big beef, right? Big bread, mayonnaise, fries. Afterwards, you feel like running a marathon, you're full of energy and your mood is really high. No, it's the opposite. So we kind of intuitively know that food really have a strong effect on our mood, right? It's just whether do we actually stop up. I used to always like eat and then, the food baby, I needed like 20 minutes and I was tired and people should only speak to me very slow after eating. I don't think I'm the only one, at least when I look around at your faces. So like, we know it regulates our mood and also our energy. So I'm not going to go into the religion of food, just some of the basics. There's a high agreement that greens is good for us. So I make my morning smoothie with the greens. I used to only eat red meat and potatoes. That was a wonderful diet till I was 25 and I had some lifestyle things that turned off from eating this lovely diet. For me, it's an easy way. And someone really smart taught me that it only takes 9 days to change your taste buds. So,
Change your what?
Taste buds. So the taste of eating this in the first is like, you gotta be kidding me. This tastes like shit. Like there's no way in hell I'm gonna eat so many green things. That broccoli, when you start, might just end up tasting like beautiful chocolate in here. Or probably not like chocolate, but it's definitely gonna taste better after 9 days in here. So it's a funny thing, when we start eating more healthy, we start to want to have more healthy food. The other thing that I do is blood testing, to actually figuring out what works for me, what kind of minerals and vitamins am I low in, so I can focus my food on that, and I can focus my supplements on what I really need, instead of just taking a bunch of supplements that I'm just going to pee out. So it's a simple way of figuring out what I really need. And it is hard to get all of the nutrition today, even though you have a balanced diet, simply because the quality of our food is not as high as it used to be. I think it's in Denmark that we found out that you eat 3 apples now, to get the same nutrition as you did before the First World War. So that's the reason why supplements come in very handy.
When you say blood testing, what do you? I mean, obviously you don't go take a stool. Is there an app that you do?
So I have a doctor in Denmark that's into functional health. I took him, and he takes the different blood tests that he thinks is valuable for me. I did 3 months at one time, and then he told me, Mads, your tests are looking wonderful. You're living a stable life. Let's do it just once a year. So my B12 is low. I didn't eat that much meat. So we changed that, and we could see with the supplements, my B12 is beautiful. So in that way, we could actually balance the different values. So depending on how your values are, then I would do it more regularly. Depending on how much you're traveling around the world, changing more regularly as well. If you're living in the northern world, you probably need D vitamin in the winter. We tested actually with a company, and like everyone except one person, or like 30 people had D vitamin deficiency. The only one that didn't, that was me, because I was taking so many D vitamin supplements. So depending on where you are in the world. I hope more companies are going to come out with easier testing. Your favorite scale? The Bristol scale. Something we need to talk about a lot more. The Bristol scale is your poop scale for the one sitting in the back and can't see it. So every day, hopefully, you have a biomarker that tells you how are you doing. So I'm not sure when's the last time that you turned down into the toilet and looked afterwards. Some of you might be like, okay, now it's time to leave this workshop. That was too much. But it's a beautiful biomarker every day that you can see on like, how is it approximately going? Fasting. How many have heard about fasting before? How many are doing fasting? Cool. I'll make that super fast. You know some of the benefits: autophagy, it cleans up the cells, mental clarity, stable blood pressure. I will be testing this with this device. What I do the intermittent fasting, which is the cool thing about being a biohacker, right? Is that what used to be just skipping breakfast, now you can be like a biohacker doing fasting, like intermittent fasting and so on. But in reality, that was what my mom always did. She never ate breakfast. So I take a 16-hour break of eating, and then I eat for 8 hours.
What hours do you eat?
I eat around normally from 11 till 6, 7. In the start, I was very strict. I had this app, Zero, and I was like counting it, and I felt like I was gonna get dizzy because I had always been eating breakfast. It was like the most important meal of the day is what you're being taught in Denmark. And I felt like, after 2 weeks, your body adjusts. So in the first 2 weeks, you might feel a little bit weird about it. Now I don't do it as strict. I do more what my body feels like. Sometimes I do a lot longer, sometimes I do this. But I often do around the 16 hours. Okay, yeah.
So, as far as intermittent fasting, I heard 16-8, 18-6. Do you have any input on that or any advice?
So I interviewed Andre, who spent 2 years on researching fasting. And there's a lot of information about like 24. He couldn't find any clear science or papers saying a big difference from more than the 16 hours to the 20 hours. That happens when you get 24 hours and you get the longer fast. So the benefits come within 5 days. Your question was more, should you do 16 hours and 20 hours or 16 hours and 10 hours? I asked him that on the podcast as well. I would love to tell you that there was like a good study saying it. I didn't find in those 2 years that was before. But you'll hear a lot of advice saying like 18 hours and 20 hours. It's like, do what feels good for you.
Next connected. There's something called Master Games.
Yeah.
Which basically you only drink lemonade for 5 to 10 minutes. Is that considered fasting?
So if you get calories in, then it's not considered fasting.
Only lemonade for 10 minutes.
Yeah. It's lemon juice, water, cayenne pepper, and
You still clean up. You still clean up your system a bit more, but you don't get all the same benefits as if you do only a water fast. So when I talked to Andre, and there's the podcast as well, where we go a full hour only into fasting, it talks about many people can take some salt and some lime and lemon a little bit. You break some of the processes a little bit, but you get the majority of fasting. So it's really about how are you doing. Big important thing about this is Again, if you look at fasting 5 days, you get the majority of the benefits, but the women, a big caution because men and women are different. That's easier to say down here than in Denmark, but we have different biology, and it can actually wreck up a woman's hormones to fast for too long. So when Andy looked into the studies, it actually turned out that women shouldn't do much more than 10 or 14 hours of fasting.
So the intermittent fasting doesn't apply?
So that's only 10 to 14 hours of taking a break. Doing longer than that in a longer period of time might actually be damaging. So it might be something that you feel really great on for a short time, but you want to be careful and you might want to get some different tests done on your hormones because it can wreck them up. So that's why it becomes dangerous when we're giving generic advice, because men and women are very different. The sad thing here is there hasn't been that many good studies done on women. You know, that's something that both Dasha and Crystal is like focused on, like how can we get better studies on women so we know what works for them. So always for the women here and the ones that have lovely women in your life, be cautious of like men and women are different. Are there any studies saying that we should do something different? Women can easily take like a 3-day fast or 5-day fast, but you shouldn't be doing it too long or too often. Sorry. The same with men, like every 3rd month or every 6 months, you can take a longer fast. So there's no reason to do a 3-day fast like too often. 24-hour fast is fine too often, but you don't want to do the 3-day fast too often.
And sorry, again, so the intermittent fasting for women should only be a max of 14 hours.
Yes. You can do it once in a while, like 16, 20 hours, 24 hours, but you don't want to be doing on an everyday basis that you only eat for 8 hours.
It also depends on where in your cycle you're living. There's certain weeks in your cycle, you should absolutely not be doing 16-hour fasts. I can help you.
There's a few good podcasts as well out there as well about like how you fast better. This is a cool topic in itself. Again, the period and so on. So, all right, just feeling up, relax and meditate. There's something Saturday is good as well. You can come and get some lessons on here. I heard there's going to be more time after today, so you know where to find that. That's the point. So stress equals cortisol. Cortisol can be absolutely amazing. You just don't want long-term high cortisol. How you look at stress also has a big impact on how it actually affects your body. So don't leave here being like, oh, cortisol is the worst thing in the world. It can be good. You just don't want long-term cortisol. That's what turns into diseases. So the stuff that I do, I meditate daily. I don't meditate for hours. I meditate a minimum of 3 minutes. I often meditate 10 to 20 minutes. And there'll be some of, perhaps Saturday, I'm not sure how religious you are, but people are saying like, then it's not meditation. It's not worth it. I believe that just getting into the practice of doing it and then you can do it more or less is more important than doing it perfectly.
My take on it is that you do the length that you can handle, but the key is regularity. So if you keep it down, that's the keep it down, that's okay. You try to keep it down. It's really about the regularity. And personally, I feel best when I can break. I can keep it every day. I have my own length, which is my personal choice. I would say 3 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, whatever you feel comfortable with. And then if you see benefits, add maybe a minute, 2 minutes. That helps you stretch and get more results, more benefits.
It's easier once you get a practice of it. It took me 2 years to start meditating because I read like the best meditation was loving kindness meditation. At least that's the one stage on. I'm not sure how many meditations they actually tested. But that was 20 minutes. I was like, God damn, I'd rather take a nap. Like, I feel much better after a nap than sitting and being like. So I really recommend getting started with it, just 3 minutes, something like inside timer, and then you start feeling that it actually makes an impact. So it took me a long time to get started, and now I don't want to start my morning without my meditation because it feels so good. Nap when possible, before 3 o'clock. And napping, there's 2 ways, either less than 30 minutes or an hour and a half, because then you get into different sleep techniques. So do it before 3 o'clock, otherwise you're going to change your sleep schedule. And if you have problems falling asleep in the evening in general, then don't nap. So if you have like you don't fall asleep and you're being too fresh, then napping is not good, but otherwise it can be quite beneficial for the body. It feels amazing, right? As long as you have a way to wake up. The ones who drink coffee, you might drink coffee just before you take that nap, because then the coffee kicks in when you wake up and you're feeling even better and you don't have that like, oh, I don't want to get up, I'm napping so well. Breathwork is absolutely fantastic. How many people here doing some kind of breathwork practice?
Yeah.
Fantastic. It's so powerful. And we'll just do a quick exercise. Something I learned the other day when I was interviewing a breathwork coach, which for me, I love to get more into my body, kind of like my heart. I'm very much in my head. Not sure if anyone else has that feeling. Once in a while, they're like in their head, they're not feeling as much. And this simple exercise got me more into my chest. So it's very simple. We do a deep breath in all the way down into your stomach as well. And on the way out, we have our mouth closed, but we hum like. So we keep that. We try and get it all the way down to the bottom of our chest. It's going to sound weird, but we're all weird here together, so it's okay. So we're going to do 3 of them. So deep breath in. Last one. You can open your eyes when you feel like it. So I'm not sure how you felt, but I feel much more calm when I do it. And I get a bit more centered and I feel my chest a bit more. So what we do is we activate the vagus nerve as well, which makes us relax. That took us 30 seconds. How many felt the state change? Few of you. Yeah. So it doesn't take that much. If you don't have 30 seconds in your day, you don't have a life. So if you don't have 30 seconds to stop up and do some kind of breath work or just like stopping up, then something else really has to change. So if you feel really selfish one day, you might even treat yourself with 3 minutes of time for yourself out of a full day of just doing this. And I promise you, you're going to feel a state change, feeling very different afterwards. Some other hacks. We have vibrators that works for men as well. So Apollo and Sensate that have different programs where the vibration does something to your body. The Sensate you put here on the chest, and it kind of gives a similar effect to that we just did before.
It's called the Sensei.
Yeah, Sensate. So that's why we love technology as well. Like, what can we do to activate it fast? I would always recommend that you try to do the natural stuff first. That doesn't cost money.
So can you know much about this device? Can you tune it to like certain hertz
You can tune it to different
frequencies?
different treatments or like different things that they want from it. They just did a Kickstarter a little while ago. It's pretty cool. It feels quite awesome as well.
Yeah.
Having that like thing vibrating on your chest. I tried it up in Finland. And if you like gadgets, then it's a wonderful thing to start with that has a positive effect.
Is it just an app or you have to buy the device?
You have to buy the device. So you get this round thing.
Amazon or something? Sorry to ask so many questions.
I'm not sure whether
We're
I
into
think you have to.
frequencies.
I think you have to go to the website to find it. So if you Google Sensate and you write meditation, it should come up.
What's the Apollo?
The Apollo is something that I know Dasha is quite happy about. It's this one, and you can put it different places. I know Dasha can tell the story afterwards about how you can set different frequencies and programs to either calm you down, the immune system, wake you up, and so on. I've only tried it once, so I can't speak about much experience. It was at a restaurant, and there was a lot of people, a lot of noise. I didn't feel that much. I thought it was pretty cool fun that something was vibrating on my leg. But more and more technologies like these are coming up. And it's quite fascinating how we can use the technology to activate or enhance something and make it even faster. Hypnotherapy. It's not about getting someone walking around saying like a chicken or something else crazy that we see on TV. There's this app called Hello Mind. They did a small study showing that it actually helps with eczema. It can also be good with addictions and many other things. So more and more studies are coming out to show that hypnotherapy can be quite effective as well. Either an app or that you actually go to someone that knows more about the techniques and so on. It's quite fascinating. Hypnotherapy, don't be afraid, they're not going to make you jump around, do weird stuff. Well, hopefully not if you find a good teacher. Alright, cold exposure. Something from the Nordic that we really like because we have a lot of cold water and we don't have this beautiful weather. So one of the reasons why it strengthens the immune system. I just had a podcast this morning with someone who wrote her PhD in cold water and brown fat. So we had an hour-long conversation about why this is so good. We're just going to get the 2 minutes recap. It stimulates brown fat tissue. Brown fat tissue. So we have white fat tissue and brown fat tissue. It's not about your skin color. It's something that all human beings have. Brown fat tissue is quite beneficial. It's part of regulating the temperature as well around our organs. Many other cool things as well. It helps balance stress hormones. It promotes autophagy. Autophagy was that thing where our cells kind of clean up themselves, where they take the broken parts and repair to the other cells, which is quite and increasing kind of like the happy hormones of serotonin. And the cool thing about how to do it, which I learned today, I was told in the Nordic, we're talking about it has to be really cold. Probably come from some men being like, look at how cool that I am. According to this researcher who's been looking at the studies and so on, it says 15 Celsius, 1.5, is all you need for it to be cold water. It doesn't look as cool on Instagram if it's 15 degrees. It looks cooler when it's like ice and so on. So you're probably going to see a lot more of that. According to her, we haven't found any studies that like it needs to be 0 degrees. It feels good when it's 0 degrees. And you feel a bit more cool because it's like,
this is off here because we can't get the water cold enough.
yeah.
You know, it's like you just sit there. You want it.
There's a hack for that.
Yeah.
You get ice cubes and a little hot tub. We did that the other day in Nanny State.
I'm always done with this. This is so good.
It's fantastic. It also lowers inflammation. So if you want to gain a lot of muscles, you don't want to do it right after because you need that inflammation to break down the muscles. But if you want to recover faster, it's really good to do after a hard session. And get some ice cubes, get under. According to her, the research that I talked to today, 30 seconds is enough. And I've normally been told that 2 minutes, you need 2 minutes is where you get the majority of the benefits. She hadn't seen any studies on it. So this was earlier today that I talked to her about that. So I'm going to reach out to the network to see, can anyone show me the study that we need to do that for 2 minutes or longer? Quite curious to see them and how good those studies actually been conducted. Yeah?
It's very popular in professional sports.
Yeah.
Drives down actual.
It works. It's fantastic. What I do, I do the cold showers every morning. As cold as I can, then it's not cold enough. So you need the ice cubes if you really want it. I do the winter bathing. And if I was really rich, I would probably have a cryotherapy, which I tried at the Dash's conference in Norway. It seems pretty cool, especially like all the air coming out. Like you come out and you feel like you're Superman coming out of this like amazing cryotherapy. It's giving some of the same benefits. Cristiano Ronaldo has one. Many of the top football players are having it because it's super easy. It's some of the same benefits. But it's quite fascinating how we can take something from nature and then how can we sometimes make technology that can get us there a little bit faster or easier if we don't have the access. Sunlight and photobiomodulation. That's a word I've been practicing a lot to be able to pronounce. Fancy word, fairly simple. So the reason why, photobiomodulation. Some people also just call it red light, near infrared light. But if you look up, at least on PubMed, I've been able to find better. If I put photobiomodulation, then it comes in afterwards. So one of the reasons why sunlight stimulates the vitamin, melatonin production, and a bunch of other stuff. If you use the red light, it also stimulates the process in the cells in the mitochondria. The mitochondria is kind of like the powerhouse of the cells, giving us energy and so on. So anything that can improve the mitochondria is a good thing. That's why we can use, if we don't have as much beautiful light as we do here, especially in the Nordic region, we use this red light instead that have different wavelengths. I use both in Denmark, 20 minutes. I sit up against this big red light, which has red light and near infrared light. Sit up against in the morning, and then I do my meditation there. And then I use my flex beam, which is more flexible on the spot that I have here where I've had some psoriasis. It looks a lot better now. Sunlight is fantastic, and same is seawater to actually get rid of skin diseases and so on. But if you don't have access to that, that's where red light is really amazing. You don't want to overdo red light. So there's still a lot of discussions about how much is good. I've interviewed a few experts on it, and some people say like 20 minutes a day is normally good. You don't want to do much more than 20 minutes. Some people will say like the entire body at 20 minutes. So the important thing is don't do an hour or 2 hours in the red light. That's most likely not going to be beneficial for you. Some other hacks. The ones of you that are getting close to getting Parkinson or Alzheimer, hopefully none of you.
Why do you look at me?
No, you were smiling. There's some early studies with the V-light, which is the fun thing that I'm wearing there, where you have light up in your nose in different places on the brain. Still early studies, but it's very promising. And a friend of mine, Sarah Turner, is doing more research as well on how can we actually use this on neurodegenerative diseases. And it's probably going to be one of the things that's really going to come out in the coming years. And when we talk about the different trends from Ray Kurzweil, red light is definitely one of them that's going to change that we're going to be able to live a better life for a long time. All right. This is the most simple, I would probably say one of the most important things for you, is turn off your damn email and your phone once in a while for those notifications. We are not meant to have like something beeping in all the time and constantly activating our nervous system. Can anyone guess how many IQ points you lose when you have notifications coming in emails? And the ones that I've already told you, please don't guess. Anyone, how many IQ points do you think you lose?
Each notification?
No, but just have it in general. It goes fast. But doing this kind of multitasking, what would you guess? 10?
I'll say more than that. I'll say 30, 40, something good.
It's 10 IQ points, but 10 IQ points is quite a lot. 10 IQ points is the same as not sleeping for 36 hours. So anyone that's been pulling an all-nighter, that's as efficient you are. But more interesting, how many IQ points do you think you lose if you smoke weed? The average person.
0.
0.
You increase them.
You increase them.
Yeah, right.
You lose 4 IQ points when you smoke. This was a study done at London University. I'm not sure how they tested the weed thing and how you get permission to test that. But it was a study from London University where they figured this out. So that basically means that the homie sitting next to you smoking a bunch of weed is much more efficient than the person sitting super stressed, having notification, multitasking, feeling like, oh, they're on top of that. So I'm definitely not smart enough to lose 10 IQ points. I don't know about you guys if you're like, just like skyrocketing the IQ points, so you're like, yeah, I need to be a little bit dumber because otherwise I don't get work done. But for me, it's like one of the easier things to make sure that I can actually perform my task. So I turn them off. I try to have fewer times that I check in on my social media, my emails, and so on. Quite simple. And I often talk to colleagues and so on about it, so I make sure that we are aligned, so they don't expect me to answer straight away. That if it's something super important, they can call me. So calls and texts are the only notifications I get on my phone. I turn off my email, and then I open it up when I want to check it. Gratitude journal is probably my own favorite biohack that I've been doing since 2013 because it's really on the mental part. It increases happiness. What we see more of, or what we focus on, we see more of. So when we see bad news, we're seeing more bad stuff. So if you focus on what you're grateful for, you're creating better highways in the brain to look for the positive stuff. is actually quite simple and so powerful. So it requires the brain that you just look for more things. I often have friends that say like, you're always so positive, or the glass is always half full. Like, it's not almost full, it's half, like, there's water in the glass. Let's focus on that water that's in the glass. And that's what actually rewires your brain to do.
I want to suggest something about the half glass, the glass half full. Actually, the glass is always full. You have half water and half air.
True. So get the most out of the air as well. And see the air, it's good for. Another really good thing about writing down a gratitude journal is that you become aware of what makes you really happy. It sounds quite simple, but often we are so busy, many people are, that if you ask someone in the street, like, what made you really happy the last week? Someone's like, my burrito, which makes me really happy. The burritos here, I can highly recommend them. But actually looking at that, and I stop up once a year, and I look at that calendar of like, what was I really grateful for? And then start looking for more of that. You realize that some people make you very grateful. Even though you don't talk to them that often, they show up every single time that you talk to them, because those are people you want more of in your life. So I try to write down every evening. I don't always write it down, but I always go to bed thinking about it. So if I don't write it down, before I go to bed, I think about it. It's really powerful for good sleep as well. It makes you fall down and actually focus on something positive instead of like the stress of the day. So quite impactful for good sleep as well. Another solution, shameless plug, is called Nuna.ai, which is an app that I helped develop, which uses cognitive behavioral therapy to structure your thoughts, and where there's a gratitude journal as well. So that's another way. But otherwise, I use notes in my phone, so simple that I just put it in there. So that's another way to structure it. Rounding off, even more important, if you just take one takeaway from here, is don't beat yourself up. So I see all of this biohacking as amazing, empowering, because I'm like, this is fantastic. I can change my life. I can get high energy. I can be more present. But if you take the other approach of being like, oh, this like Danish guy told me that I need to implement 10 new things in my life. I'm like, what the hell? I'm already too busy. Like, don't beat yourself up. Like, it's okay to have that grounding once in a while, or do something that balances out your life. But it's focusing on the things that actually makes a difference. And the mental stress about all the things that are wrong in the world, blue light, the food and so on, can sometimes be even worse than the negative effect from it. So the mental stress can be more negative than the real effect of the thing. So we really need to be careful of our mind. We all know about placebo can be much more powerful than medicine. So if we beat ourselves up too much about that we have to do all of these things, and oh, now I didn't do it today, then I'm going to get sick, then you will get sick. So it's important to have the mindset of like, this is empowering. And you could do nothing else than just do biohacks all day long. You wouldn't do anything else, you would just do experiments and like doing the stuff that's supposed to keep your job. But that's not living life. So it's like figuring out what are the things that come natural to you that can make a difference, and enjoy them. Don't worry too much about all this. If you're sick and if there's nothing like the doctors are helping you with, you go to a functional doctor, you probably need to do a lot of things more extreme to get back in health. Once you're back in health, make sure you find that balance in something that makes you happy. Take some calculated risks and enjoy them. Really go skydiving, or you go partying and you have fun. Now we might live to like 400 or 500 years, so like life might not be as short, but if you don't make it there, then at least it's important that we enjoy the time and get the most out of it. And we don't get caught up with having to do biohacks all the time. And that's very important. I think both Dash and I and Crystal that are in the biohacking environment see that many people end up getting consumed by wanting to do everything instead of actually living life and finding the things that work. So I really hope that you take that away, that the Nordic biohacking is very much about the balance and not being like too extreme or too caught up and having to do everything. That balance is really important. And it's fun to test. I got this wonderful device on today. This is a continuous glucose monitor that I don't know too much about yet, but it's gonna tell me how my blood sugar is reacting to what I eat. So one of my friends at home who's a doctor, he's always picking me up about eating too much food because I love my colorful smoothies. And he's like, dude, this is not good for you. If you want that psoriasis to go away, you need to cut down on all that glucose. So now I'll be able to see how it actually impacts and see like how is food reacting to me. I'm going to be doing an experiment with Dasha where we're going to be eating some of the same food, and then we'll see like how's the spike different. That's going to be going back to the biohacking. Is it fun? For me, it's fun to test. I love to learn new things and get data that can help me be like, how much glucose should I most likely get? Should I be a little bit more careful with eating so much mango or papaya down here because it's so delicious? Or is it actually perfectly fine? Which is what I hope to see, but the data will might give me another result.
Fresh brownies.
Fresh brownies is another thing that's absolutely heaven and earth.
Yes.
No one will talk about that.
Question about the glucose. So, I mean, you want to know, depending on what you eat, how it affects your glucose level. So, because you don't want it to be too high or too low.
Yeah. So, this is normally being used for people that have diabetes, and super helpful for them. We now know that a more stable blood sugar is also quite good. There's more and more science coming out that we are starting to see like a more stable blood sugar and not too high spikes are probably going to be good for us. I don't know exactly why, and there's a lot of stuff still coming out of like why is it so important to have a more stable blood sugar? What are the other effects in the body? So this will tell me a little bit more like how much is the spike. So I need to figure out what's a too high spike.
Are you just doing like a short-term observation?
Yeah, 2 weeks.
So what if it is for a diabetic? Is it full time or
Not
are they waterproof, et cetera, et cetera?
This is waterproof. So this is it's a device that is correct me that is being used for people with diabetic. Then the company Barry made a really cool app and made the interface much more easy for normal people and athletes to use it to kind of option.
So if you're diabetic, you can use that pump. That pump is more invasive. This is just a really small, there's a small needle that goes inside, and then you have an app with Bluetooth. You scan it, and then you use it. So as a diabetic, so each one of these stays in for 2 weeks. For the diabetic, you would have it continuously, and then insurance in the US can cover it.
Some people have also like there's different devices. Some people have it down here.
Not for me, I like those.
You want like those?
Not for me.
But for any diabetic, if that is if you are diabetic, it is a fantastic use. And insurance can cover it. Yeah.
Some people have to do it in regards to insulin. But it's quite fascinating seeing what's going to happen, and I'll be sharing on Instagram some of the results. How is it doing? Are the brownies from Fresh absolutely amazing? You should just go like nuts.
Less than that is how I want to see
Yeah.
it.
Or is it like exercise also matters? So there's many factors that go in. And we know that, for example, in banana, there was a big study in South Korea, one of the biggest studies where we look at glucose levels and so on. That we have this glucose index about like how is different food going to impact you. It turned out that it wasn't that accurate. That it was very different in individuals. So a banana would impact one guy much more than another guy. So even though we have this index, which is the best that we have otherwise, it's not as accurate as actually getting the data on yourself. But that is fantastic. We're living in an age where we can figure out what gives us more energy. And with that, I think it's time for a quick break, or actually an ending of the session, where you can go get some water, and we'll continue to be here for any questions, so we can open it up more for dialogue. Again, thank you for coming today. Thank you for contributing to the NGO, so some people are getting some food on the table, and for taking the time to find a way to optimize yourself, so you can be there for other people. Or when you see me tired at the beach, then you can come and cheer me up. And we have some
Ginola juice, tamarind juice, water with lime, tea, coffee, herbal tea. There's moringa if you want to make some moringa tea.
some good stuff.
Let me know whatever you
Thank
like.
Feel free to connect, whether it's Instagram, LinkedIn, or wherever you are present. Love to meet there for more questions as well when we are having the informal session.